We are on the verge of the most important U.S. election, I think, in our short history of America, certainly in my lifetime. We have struggled with two very flawed candidates, one of them a globalist in every sense of the word, and her policies would bring about a borderless world with a single ruler in time, and the other more of a nationalist, but also with some flawed characters. So righteous people across America have struggled with just a few options. And leader after leader in America has insisted that as citizens and as Christians, nonetheless, we must vote. You know, in both the book of Daniel and the Psalms, the Bible says that God sets up kings and he takes them down. Whoever is elected on November 8th, it is God's will for his eternal purposes that often are a mystery to us. And if we have flawed candidates, can we look at the issues and vote on the issues we have right now, from life to marriage to our relationship with Israel to the Supreme Court? I think so. So joining me to discuss these issues for the next hour, Pastor J.D. Farag from Calvary Chapel, Kaneohe, Hawaii, and Pastor Jack Hibbs, Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, California. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Jan.
I have listened to both of you. Of course, I listen to you on a regular basis, but I've listened to you in more recent weeks here, and you have both given pretty passionate messages on the responsibility of the Christian to vote. It's not an option. It's kind of an assignment from the Bible. And would you both agree with me that in my intro here, that I just said that possibly the door to globalism will really be opened if we have a Hillary Clinton victory November 8th?
Well, this is Jack. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Jan and JD, more than ever, the Christian should be very educated about how to vote, not if to vote. I actually think if to vote is inexcusable. The Christian must vote. So to be educated about how to vote, you're right, Jan. Hillary Clinton's agenda is a globalist agenda. She is for a international nation, really one nation of countries that coalesce together. She's for that. She believes that that's the only answer. Now, the Christian is to vote biblically. I personally believe this election is not as difficult as people think it is when, as you point out, Jan, look at the issues. I think it's absolutely clear on how we ought to vote.
J.D. Farag, summarize what you've said to your congregation, and I've heard a lot of what you've said to your congregation. Summarize it here in a few paragraphs.
So, over the last several weeks, I have been very clear about how not only is this the most important presidential election of our lifetime, but moreover that there has never been such a stark contrast between two candidates in our lifetime. I made a comment to my congregation about how that we will all stand before God and give an account for not just if we voted, but how we voted. And it was really interesting because after that particular prophecy update, I had somebody in my church approach me, never been a voter, never registered to vote, and he stated to me that he never saw it that way, and immediately went out and registered to vote. Had another couple in my church, this is about a month ago, after saying something to that effect, and they came up to me afterwards and said, we're going to register to vote today, and we also never thought of it from that perspective. So again, this is, I believe, the handwriting is on the wall, for lack of a better way of saying it. The handwriting is on the wall, and the jury is out on how this nation will vote.
Jack Hibbs, you are in favor, and we all are, I guess, of voting for the most Christian-friendly platform, and I think it's rather clear which of the two platforms would be most suitable for Bible-believing Christians, and I can expand on this throughout the hour here, but talk to me a little bit about the importance of this Christian-friendly platform and the importance of walking down that aisle.
Yeah, very good question. All of you who are listening to this program, which I'm so grateful that you are, and that Jan has got the platform to inform you, you all need to know something about this particular platform right now for the Republican Party. Number one, the chief architect of this Republican platform for 2016 is a very dear friend of mine and Christian brother and president of the Family Research Council, and that's Tony Perkins. In fact, the liberals liberals have named it the Perkin platform, the Perkins platform. They've mocked it. Why? Because it is the most pro-Israel, it is the most pro-family, it is the most pro-life and pro-traditional marriage platform in the Republican Party in 11 years, ladies and gentlemen. What I'm encouraging this church here at Chino Hills is you've got to cast your vote like casting your lure, your fishing hook, cast it over the head of Hillary or over the head of Donald. Don't get fixated on Donald and Hillary like the media would have you to do. Cast your vote regarding the most biblical, God-honoring platform. And so I've never said this before publicly, but I've got to say it now because of the urgency of this election. When I look at this platform, Jan and JD, I must now vote to honor God. I'm going to vote what's called party down voting, which means I'm going to be voting for Republicans, not because I love them or because they're sinless. It's because of the platform that they're standing on. I'm now voting for the platform. And it's not bad also to have a guy like Mike Pence as vice president who's a wonderful believer.
You're listening to Understanding the Times Radio. I'm Jan Markell. I have on the line Pastor Jack Hibbs, Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, California. Pastor J.D. Farag from Calvary Chapel, that would be Kaneohe, Hawaii. I follow them both heavily online, though Jack Hibbs also is on radio. You can learn a lot more at the Mideast Prophecy Update on YouTube for Pastor J.D. Farag and RealLifeWithJackHibbs.com for Jack Hibbs Media Ministry. Gentlemen, let me address this to Pastor Farag. You have stated that Donald Trump's platform of making America great again doesn't fit in well with how you see the Bible playing out, and I would agree with you, but why don't you explain what you mean?
I don't see an America great again as being compatible with what I see in Bible prophecy, in the sense that the United States of America is at best conspicuously absent from any mention in the last days. There are some who suggest there's a vague reference in Ezekiel 38 verse 13, and that could be, but it's nebulous at best. And if that reference in verse 13 of Ezekiel 38 is concerning the United States of America, then all we have been reduced to simply protesting, along with the likes of, who knew, Saudi Arabia, who today is chummying up to Israel against Russia and Iran, whom they fear tremendously, and Turkey as well, by the way. Well, be that as it may, I don't see a great America. Now, does that mean that if Trump is the president, that we don't move in that direction? Absolutely not. I hope and pray that's what happens. And if it does happen, then what I see happening is, I pray, an awakening. It's like the Apostle Paul said to the church in Romans 13, about how the night is almost over and it's time to sober up and wake up, because our salvation draws nearer than when we first believed. And it could very well be that there is an awakening. There's a shaking up, a waking up. And I pray that what happens today in the Middle East with the Muslims, who by the multitudes are coming to Christ, I pray that happens in America. And if Trump is president, I think there's more of a propensity for that to happen. But I don't see America rising to the level of where it was once prior.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, let's all remember something. The election is going to be on Tuesday, November 8th. When we wake up on Wednesday, November 9th, Jesus is still seated on his throne.
Amen.
Okay, the second thing is that I'm looking at this election having one of two outcomes, and to be frank with you, both of them win for me. Let me explain. Number one is the fact that if Donald Trump wins, I happen to know some of the people that he has surrounded himself with, and they love the Lord, and they're speaking to him. Let's assume for a moment, I think it's easy to assume, Donald Trump is a non-believer. He may believe in God, but I don't believe he's born again. But he's surrounded himself with godly people. He's surrounded himself with a godly vice president nomination. How can this possibly be? Number one, is it possible that if Trump's elected, which would be miraculous at the time of this program right now, there's just mathematically no way he can win this. However, if he can, would that be the grace of God who has put people in the courtroom or the court of, say, a Cyrus or a Nebuchadnezzar? Is Trump like a Nebuchadnezzar or a Cyrus, but there are Daniel types. There are those under him that know the Lord and love the Lord, meaning could this extend a time of mercy, as J.D. just mentioned, that would bring about spiritual revival, not because of Trump, but because the nation would be granted time and freedom. The church could preach the gospel. Or Hillary's elected, absolutely godless, antithesis of biblical worldview issues, and has voiced her opinion against Christianity and our Constitution. And it's no secret that she's going to sequester Christian radio, just like this one, certainly like our broadcast.
That's right.
What does that mean? Well, I think it still means a great victory. It's either Trump, we get time to preach, or Hillary, we run out of time, which means, though, for me, a purification of the church. I believe if Hillary gets elected, the church is going to go through a refining process that is going to be absolutely necessary. So as a pastor, here's what I'm commanded to do, is to instruct our people to do the right thing regardless of the outcome, to vote biblical worldview, to take the talent that God has given me, which is an opportunity. In this case, it's voting. It is inexcusable to bury it. I must go vote. It's either 1, 5, or 10 talents. God reviews our lives. Even if you have one talent to invest and it's voting, go vote a biblical worldview. Regardless of the outcome, you can look at God in the face and say on the day of judgment that you did the right thing. I think it's a win-win for the church no matter what.